Welcome to Ocean Truth Podcast. I'm Josh Neut.
And I'm Dane Neut. We're cutting through the noise and talking about what's really happening in Australia's oceans.
And today we're going to talk about two big topics, the reopening of the Clarence and why investors are backing out of offshore wind farms.
And joining us today is someone who knows these waters better than most, Mary Howard, here to share her insight and experience from the front line.
Thank you, Dane.
Mary, what's been on your radar?
For those two subjects, the situation with the closing of the Clarence, the timeframes that have been allocated, the changes that have been made, the loss of continuing for the fishermen, how the fishermen get back up and running, why they were closed in the first place, when there was no white spot obvious, and they're the ones whose product was affected, the general community's acceptance of Clarence River prawns, in general, the rebuild of the sales process for that area and how it's affected everyone. It doesn't just affect the Clarence. It affects tweed bait. It affects commercial fishermen right across the state who are part and parcel of the bait fishery.
Well said.
Right, so before I start with the first topic, reopening of the Clarence, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been a supporter of Ocean Truth Australia. Josh and I have been writing articles, one each, every week for a fair while now.
80 plus articles now.
80 plus articles, yeah.
And a few special guests as well.
Yeah, and it's been good. It's kept us busy, that's for sure. But thank you very much for all your support, and hopefully enjoy this podcast that we're going to bring to you now. So, first topic, reopening of the Clarence. 2 years ago, the Clarence River prawn fleet, about 35 trawlers, was shut down under white spot disease control order. The closure was meant to last until mid-2025, but after wild prawns tested positive offshore in April, the ban was extended until December this year. Testing being done by New South Wales Elizabeth MacArthur Agricultural Institute, with confirmation that the Australian Centre for Disease Preparedness in Geelong, the positive samples came from wild school prawns near the mouth of the Clarence, Evans and Richmond rivers. Since the shutdown, local operators, processors and the Clarence River Fishermen's Cooperative have taken a major hit, losing roughly a third of their seafood income. Government relief has included about $21 million in income support and a controversial share buyout offer of just $133 per share, which many fishers say barely touched the loss. Now, with the end of the order in sight, the big question is what happens next? Can those trawlers return? And will the markets and buyers still be there after 2 lost seasons? Reopening a fishery isn't like flipping a switch. It's rebuilding an entire working system. So Josh, what do you got on this?
So yeah, I put out an article exactly on this, the reckoning of the Clarence. And it starts off by just talking about what the closure was all about, how it happened, but I had direct contact with a few fishers in that region to get an understanding of the actual long-term consequences from, I guess, what they were facing, and constantly being told, we're going to reopen, oh no, we found something, we're going to, and yeah, they just don't know what the future's going to hold. And then when I looked at it from a, I guess, economic perspective, I started to ask the question, well, how are they going to reopen? Because all the trucks that were put in place that carted all the goods, they're now doing something else. The people who used to buy the bait off all these trawlers, they're now going searching somewhere else. They might be using plastic lures instead of live bait. So the whole market has been distorted just by these 35 trawlers being shut down. 3 trawlers, I believe, remained active during this period, and they were forced to cook their prawns and sell only cooked prawns. A lot of the prawns were smaller than normal, but the yield they're getting is in abundance. There's plenty of prawns there, and they constantly had people on the trawlers with them testing along the way, and not once did they identify any white spot during that time. So
you would think, nor should they, if the farms are set up appropriately, and if our understanding is that the white spot has come from the farms in the first place, it's quite simply the farms should not be depositing any effluent water into the Clarence. So why have they the concerns that they have in the first place? Is it design? Is design fault within the aquaculture setup? And why should the wild harvest be affected by something that's an on-land development, man-made, which has strict rules that you should abide by? When you hold an aquaculture farm permit, you should be coming under the regulatory process that government sets, and my understanding of government regulations for aquaculture setups, you don't put your effluent water back into your rivers and estuaries. It just doesn't happen.
Well, one could ask the question, was this by design? Because there has been an active push to consolidate, to get rid of fishes. So when they had that attempt of doing that $133 per share buyout, was that their attempt to go, well, we've got a reason to knock out a fair few fishermen here, and then when they got the pushback from the fishers saying, no, that's not enough, you're not buying us out, this is our livelihood, we want to stay, they went, oh, damn, that didn't work. Is that possible? That it's by design for that reason?
You would never get them to admit to that.
There's no testing in the actual Clarence that proved that any white spot was in that region.
So what are the biosecurity regulatory processes for the river and wild harvest? Why are they, as in wild harvest, being regulated under an aquaculture process? It doesn't stand to reason if the aquaculture farms and their ponds are run appropriately. It's an unfair process that they've been delivered, and now they've got to recover from it. So, and how many of the fishers are multi-endorsed fishers? So how is that overrun into other fisheries?
Yep.
Because they've had to put their effort into something else. Sure, they're being compensated not to go prawn trawling, but what other fisheries could they then go into?
Yeah, they're jumping into meshing, they're doing crabbing. A fair few of them have actually stopped fishing for now and gone into the cane farms, and like completely left the industry just to do cane farming as a side hustle, you might call it. And yeah, it's a long-term consequence, because now when they go to reopen, the expectation is everything's just going to be sweet, but no, it can't just work like that.
I keep going back to something a very smart lady from the mid-north coast told me, and that is that there are no unintended consequences in fisheries management. And under fisheries management comes aquaculture. In aquaculture you have prawn farming, which is where white spot was first introduced to Australia. Now, this is a big problem regardless of where you are. We don't want white spot in any of our wild stocks. We take very good care of our wild stocks. We're a very sustainable industry. We haven't been treated that way, but in my view, one issue is the biosecurity, massive failures with biosecurity, and the other failure is not making sure that these prawn farms are doing everything in their power to make sure that we don't get these diseases in Australia.
Yep.
It's disappointing because it would be at least 20 years ago that the subject of white spot and the biosecurity requirement of observation on white spot was first brought up. But this is not just the latest issue in terms of it. It's been brought up before, and fishermen forewarning and being really concerned about the development of it in this country. So obviously the steps that have been taken are quite severe, but the recovery is also going to be severe, and it's going to affect everyone, not just those fishermen who are no longer fishing. It has to affect the whole marketplace.
Yeah.
And in that marketplace, you have a shift to a new fisherman's market. We're looking at something totally new again, with dealing with that influx of extra prawns that go into the marketplace.
It was a highly productive river system. They produced a lot of prawns.
True.
And to suddenly have 35 trawlers back active again, let's say that happens, that is a lot of production that is just going to hit the market. So all the other river systems that have been building up their, their fleet and working on their prawn market, they're all going to be impacted.
Correct.
The market prices are just going to drop.
Correct.
So it's got long-term consequences because there's just going to be a glut on the market. Whereas it was sustainable before, when the Clarence was operating, the Hawkesbury that we work in, it was all working well and the prices were stable. The prices were good still. When the Clarence shut down, it just changed the whole dynamic. And now when it reopens again,
it's going to change the dynamics again.
Yeah.
And given that each area fishery, the prawn species is not necessarily identical. While it is the same species coming from each of the estuaries, there is a difference. And there is a difference in the Clarence. When they get to market, fishermen send their product, not realising always that the purchaser has set his mind on what he's buying, what he isn't buying, and we now have a whole new ball game because that product hasn't been in the system, and now it's coming back in the system. And one of the biggest changes will be how tweed bait determines what it does. Apart from the fact that some of the fishermen were actually selling direct to outlets. And that again, some of those outlets closed. That again is a whole change system.
Yeah, well, a lot of the production did happen close to the Clarence. With tweed bait not too far away, a lot of those prawns were moved through those sort of markets. They didn't really hit city fish markets because they had all these networks in place to deal with the amount of prawns that they were getting.
Yeah.
But that's all stopped.
Yeah.
So for all that to start up again,
yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. They have to re-establish all their markets.
Time will tell.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next subject, I'll just do a bit of an introduction of Mary. So Mary, when did you start fishing?
Got me on the spot now. In terms of prawn trawling, Graham was working. I didn't go trawling with him at the start, and we would go back to the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, and in that time you were also building a very popular, famous
trawler.
They've got them in the Hunter, the Clarence, and the Hawkesbury.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So now you're also secretary of Wild Caught Fishers Coalition.
Yes.
And there is an AGM coming up.
Correct. on the 2nd of November.
Yep, 2nd of November. So any members out there, or even just New South Wales fishers who are interested in seeing what's going on, get in touch and we'll let you know when it is. And we've also got a draft strategic plan out for all fishers to have a look at, in hopes of starting to move forward and get a better go for our industry in New South Wales. So next we have offshore wind projects scrapped. So commercial fishers across New South Wales are relieved as major offshore wind projects off Newcastle and Illawarra are now off the table. $10 billion Novocastrian offshore wind farm has been cancelled after Equinor pulled out, and Blue Float Energy has paused its Illawarra proposal. For local fishers, this means access to productive grounds stay open. Areas that have supported trawlers and line boats for generations, they've long warned that offshore turbines would create exclusion zones, disrupt fish habitats, and pose real safety risks at sea. With projects now stalled, governments have a chance to rethink how renewable energy fits alongside food production. Our oceans aren't empty space for industry. They're working waters that feed families. For seafood consumers, this means continued access to wild-caught prawn, squid, snapper from New South Wales waters, free from industrial interference. So Mary, I'll kick off to you. Now, you and I have had many discussions. These wind projects have stemmed from the global warming / climate change / rising sea levels. Now, I've seen the data from Fort Denison, but why don't you fill us in on how the water levels are going at Fort Denison?
Again, you've put me on a hot spot. As I understand it, there's very little change to the levels at Fort Denison, and without having it in front of me and rechecking, we're talking very little and to start to highlight that the world we're all going to sink is a nonsense in effect when you do look at the sea levels at Port Denison. But I also look at the flood levels of the Hawkesbury and how the floods in the Hawkesbury have been occurring ever since Captain Cook arrived in the country that we know of. It's a case of you weren't screaming climate change, you weren't screaming the end is coming and we're all going to be flooded in. That's climate and it's shifting and we understand it. If we look very closely at the Hawkesbury, you'll see that there are 40-year gaps between floods. Then you will see that there's 3 floods in the 1 year. And then there may be a 20-year gap and a drought. And then you've got, again, another series of floods. And all of that is also picked up Fort Denison. So we are predicting something, to me, that's not real.
One thing I remember starting fishing at the tail end of a major drought, the last major drought we had in the Hawkesbury, I remember the news was, it wasn't talking about, oh my God, all the rain, it's never going to stop, this is a global climate crisis. No, it was, we are never going to have dams full again. Yeah. We're never going to have water again. This is a climate crisis.
Yeah.
So the narrative has completely shifted. What are your views on this one, Josh?
Well, with the data, they like to cherry pick the data. Like if you want to show that temperatures are rising, then you just go to the winter period, to the summer period, and you go, look, temperature's rising. Well, can we expand out a bit? Oh, look, there's a cycle. We've got winter, summer, there's a cycle. There's a longer term cycle, which shows that temperatures over a long term go up and down, up and down. Same with all the different weather patterns. They cycle around the world, and at some point they hit certain points of Australia that cause the different weather events. So you can't say that all these climate change things are coming up unless you can actually look through a long-term data and prove that that's the case. The other thing that they tend to do with the data is when one data point's not really helping the narrative, they change it. So where they used to take the temperature at one location because that location was what they just selected back 50, 60, 70 years ago, they went, oh, it's too hard to maintain that anymore, it's not really giving accurate temperatures anymore, so we're going to change it to over here, or we're going to go to satellite now.
Yeah.
So changing the method that they've collected the data and then treating that as the same data, how can you use that as evidence to show that this whole climate alarmism is real?
You sound like a bit of a conspiracy theorist. Next you're going to tell me that the sun orbits closer and further away at different times.
What sun?
The sun in the sky.
The Earth's flat.
We've got a desalination plant.
Yeah.
Do we use it?
No.
No.
And why was the desalination plant? It is in the reality in our lifespan, and the lifespan is so minimal in the big picture of looking at the ice age and what's going to happen, what isn't going to happen. So it becomes more irrelevant to us when they're trying to doom and gloom the process on such a insignificant time frame.
Mm.
You know, it doesn't add up. But what's happening is that they're changing our lives, and they're affecting small business, and it's no different to the Clarence River and the impact on those fishermen. They're all small fishermen for small fishing businesses, and they've had to change their businesses and adjust what they do. And management of us as for our resource is continually changing, and this project alone, the offshore wind farm, was going to be another input into your added climate issue, but it's more than the climate issue. If they had gone ahead with the wind farms, hundreds of fishermen were going to be totally impacted. And it made no sense to be doing one against the other for the reasons that they were putting forward. It just doesn't add up at all.
Yeah.
And quite obviously, it isn't adding up to the people who are putting money into it.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't have a problem with renewables per se. I like rooftop solar. Makes sense. Residential, even commercial, big corporations that want to take off some of their electricity by using the sun, no problem with that. But forcing this net zero when it's very clear that the technology isn't there yet.
But
you can't just force it.
But how are you going to get net zero with the systems that are in place that include China?
Yeah, exactly. Because we're exporting all of our zero.
That's Rob and Peter and Pay and Paul, and we're the ones our businesses are the ones that are suffering.
Correct. Yeah.
They're hitting our bottom line.
They get cheap electricity.
Yeah.
We pay more.
Can I tell you
Good deal.
my issue with the things like rooftop solar? it's got great potential, but the way they've structured it, in my view, is wrong, because it's not the solar power that you generate goes straight into paying all your, like, charging all your appliances and whatnot in your house. It goes into the grid first, and then you use the grid. So having the power generation source, being the solar panels, so close to where you're using the power, that's perfect. But that's not what they're doing.
No, that depends on the setup.
They're sending it. Well, you're not allowed to do a direct connection anymore. Initially, that's what they were doing. So early adopters, that's what they were doing. But then the government came in and they went, no, we want to get it to go through the grid. So then when they're not using it, we can help charge the grid.
Oh, I thought that changed again due to batteries, if you have a battery.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But the thing with the offshore wind farms, they are so far away from where you're actually using the energy. So those major cables that are going to run through the seafloor, energy just, it's not, it has leakage.
Yeah, the longer it goes.
So the longer it goes, the more energy is dispersed throughout the travel. So if all the way in the heart of a city, they're using the energy, but that energy is coming from offshore wind farms, the efficiency is just not there. So I honestly don't know how there is any investment dollars going towards wind farms. It doesn't make sense to me. The only way it makes sense is because it's government backed.
Yeah.
The government supplies half the money towards a project, which means that the loss that they would incur if they were all in, if the investor was all in, is subsidised by the government. So they end up making a profit because the government is essentially paying them a profit.
And once again, the bottom line is affecting everyone.
Yep.
The taxpayer is the person that's picking up the bill. So it just.
And I still can't get past with the whole climate crisis thing. We're all going to die because the planet's going to heat up by 1 degree or whatever it is. I still can't get past the fact that the Australian government is saying all this and trying to get us to believe all this, while at the same time they still have the most efficient, the cleanest form of energy banned, nuclear.
Okay.
You cannot say that there's a climate crisis and ignore the
options on the table.
Which according to the research I've done, nuclear is now it's actually injured and killed less people than coal power plants and all forms
wind
of
farms
it.
probably. There's a few people who die from wind farms, fallen off them, or
the politics behind all that is part and parcel of why government doesn't go down nuclear. It's more to do with the politics. It's a bit like the politics of recreational fishing versus commercial fishing.
Yeah.
It's
what doesn't support the narrative.
And the land usage, renewables use a lot of land. Those solar farms, they drag on for miles.
Yeah.
I should say kilometres, we're in Australia.
Yeah. We've got to put a pin in this. Anyway, so just one last thing. Seafood Society Australia, an organisation we've established to recognise finally the rights of the seafood consumer. Seafood consumers over the last decades have lost a lot of seafood off their plates. Wild caught seafood in particular from Australia. This is because of politics, because of redistribution of wealth, because instead of looking after our own country in Australia and making sure that our own people are making a solid income, we decide that we're going to prop up third world countries and destroy our own country's industries. It's happened in farming, it's happened in fishing, it's happened in forestry. We do it everywhere. So that's why we've started Seafood Society Australia. And if you'd like to join up, you can visit our website, www.seafoodsocietyaustralia.com.au.
$10 membership, is it?
It's $10 a year. And it's all online. You just have to fill in the form and go for it.
I think in saying that, the realisation for everyone that the number of commercial fishers left in New South Wales, and for that matter right around Australia, our voice is very minimal, and we need a consumer voice. So it's essential that we have a consumer base that understands and has input and can add to the commercial voice, because at this point of time our voice is minimal with the decision-making process by government politically, and we need consumer backing politically.
Yeah.
The question is, do you eat seafood? And if you do, then you want to continue eating seafood.
But also
you need to do something about it.
But also we've got to change the publicity. The publicity coming out of governments as well is that our commercial fisheries need to be sustainable, and so when they come up with the next bit of reform, and again we lose a few more commercial fishers, they're still arguing, well, we need to make the industry more sustainable and viable, but each time they do that, they are reducing the number of commercial fishers, and that reduces the commercial fishers' voice, doesn't make them more viable, and doesn't make them more sustainable. So we have an essential need with the Seafood Society organisation for consumer backing, which is where we need to go.
Yeah, and you only have to look at, in recent time, more recent than New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. Complete basket cases. They've just destroyed those industries completely. And they've wiped out New South Wales. South Australia has already gone through this stuff before us, and now they're facing a algal bloom, which has put them out of work. So it's just a disaster. And we need the consumer.
I think we've hit on a few hot topics that we can cover off next time. So let's say goodbye for now.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.